soon as we started coming down these streets, her whole mood changed. It was like she was home.
It's hard to describe myself because I don't know who I am without a substance. I never thought that I would make it this far, ever.
If you put our family next to like the average American family, they're like, dude, why did these people breed?
I've done some pretty cool things in my life that have gone unnoticed.
I think you get conditioned to be a minimizer. Because my mom was an addict with her eating disorder. If you could just show some affection.
It's not a little thing.
You drink and smoke pot. Why would I want your opinion on how to get sober?
I wake up and I help your daughter every day and you don't even realize it.
If I just keep doing what I need to do.
She wakes up feeling bad, she goes to bed feeling bad, she feels bad when she breathes.
That there's no limit to the possibilities of what my life could become.
I'm telling you that. She's living in hell.
Never give up on your loved one. The greatest people, the strongest people rise out of nothing.
Spotlight is back, and in this fourth iteration, we have an incredible array of indie artists and their art to introduce you to. And it all starts with a poignant documentary made by indie filmmakers Hallee Adelman and Sean King O'Grady, in which they follow a family that has been fighting addiction and turmoil to stay together and to stay strong. And in this interview, Joe Compton asked the filmmakers all about how they came about this story, how the family took on this responsibility to tell their story, and all of the ins and outs it takes to make a documentary as powerful and as important as this. We hope that in doing this interview, you'll want to check out a film that you can get on demand via your favorite streaming service, as we turn the spotlight on our American family. To start with, I know how this story developed because I do my research, but my audience, who's made up of a lot of authors, will probably be very excited to hear, Hallee, how the evolution of this came to be, how you met this family, how they helped you in your authoring, and then you helped by putting out then extending it into a film.
I was working on a teen novel, and there was one character who was struggling with addiction, and the main character was a sibling who was not struggling with addiction, but was touched by it because of her sister's journey. And Linda, who's the mother in our American family, approached me and said, "Hey, I heard you're working on this project. You might want to speak with two of my kids." Nicole, at the time, she was a chronic relapser for a heroin addiction. She had progressed from, drinking and trying marijuana to using heroin. And her youngest son, Stephen, and you see all of these people I'm mentioning in our American family, Stephen was impacted by addiction, but not an addict. So, what did it look like for them? From there, I became part of the community of people who genuinely just wanted this family to succeed and wanted to support them. And what was unique about them then, which is obviously what makes them unique and special now, is that they were brave enough to share every bit of their story. And they wanted to invite people in, they wanted to bash stigma, and they wanted to build compassion.
You've done producing of documentaries before, but this would be your first foray as the filmmaker, as the director of this. Was that just a comfort thing for you? Did you feel like you're the only person that they would fully trust? So, maybe you would get the most out of it to or is it just something you wanted to try and do and you felt like this was the opportunity?
I mean, after I knew that we were going to create a family story surrounding addiction, I mean, Sean was literally there with me on day one when we started filming. I mean, genuinely, I had no idea, like, what cameras should we use? I had no idea what lenses are possible. And besides the fact that Sean brings so much heart and to the room, that immediately I think the family was comfortable, not only because of our existing relationship, but also because of Sean's really even keel disposition, a really non-judgmental approach. Like, it really was perfect. And then the rest of the team, Seamus is our DP, and Savannah as our sound woman, and Tiago, who is our AP, who just was joyful and also loving. Everybody created a safe space.
This must have been right up your alley, Sean, knowing your biography and all the films you've done before. This kind of did it kind of sing to you right away? Were you kind of like blown away by the opportunity to tell a narrative story in a documentary space like this?
Yeah, absolutely. And we didn't know. I think the great thing about filming a documentary over a long period of time like this is so many things can happen in a year of someone's life, and this was a great opportunity to be able to capture that, to be able to have that scale of time. And it was really thrilling that this ended up being a hopeful story at the end. I think that we see so many documentaries, whether it's in the world of sports, you see the team fail and you have to learn through failure, or in the world of addiction, or in the world of mental illness where something bad happens and there's an ending that's tragic. And this was one where we were really we met this family at a really pivotal moment in their lives, and we got to follow them to what ultimately is an extremely hopeful and triumphant ending. So it was just a fantastic opportunity and an incredible experience.
The thing that struck me right away, like right at the first frame of this film, is a trigger warning. And I'm kind of curious, was there a grand debate about that? Because that's one of those things that you think about, and you there is probably, I'm wondering, was there a discussion about should we have one, should we not, and ultimately what was the decision behind putting that into the film, because it's kind of unique even for the documentary space.
I think there wasn't a thought process. I think it was what we thought was just genuinely responsible. That if someone was going to come to the film and they weren't in a great place, or they did get triggered, we wanted to make sure that people could either come back with support to watch the film and enter the space, or could decide that it wasn't for them at the moment. I mean, and I think that's been important to us the whole time, how to be responsible, not just by the family, but also by our audience. We are partnering with the Heron Project to make sure that people have a place that they can call for sure after they watch the film if they need support. So I think every decision, there weren't those conversations, because Sean and I were on the same page of let's just do this responsibly.
Yeah, it made things really easy. I think Hallee was really like the ethical backbone of this, and like her mantra the whole time was like making sure we do right by the family and doing right by, I guess, anyone that's watching it. And that makes decisions really easy because you don't have to make a decision. You just do what's right.
That's awesome. I love hearing that, because, as documentarians, you almost have to be out of the way a lot of times. And there's, you may get forced into corners. Like you said, Sean, you didn't know what to expect, spending a year with the family, and you kind of get caught in a corner, and you have to make a decision. Am I going to continue with this or cut this? Or, knowing that right up front probably helped you guys get through a lot of those moments, I would assume.
Yeah, it definitely did. And also, taking our tone from the bravery of the family. It was really like we were playing in their sandbox, and that also makes decisions easy because you're there to capture what they're giving you and then treating that with respect.
How much do you attribute, Hallee, to your relationship with them and knowing them? Because another real important element of a documentarian is gaining the trust of the subject so that they can open up and give you something to have as a film. Do you feel like you got a leg up because of your relationship with them a little bit as a filmmaker?
I mean, I absolutely think that having a foundation for any filmmaker and participant, having a foundation of trust is so important. Participants do need to realize, like, when they say they're putting their life out there, they really are. And it's not just for the moment with an intimate film team. I mean, we're lucky our film team was non-judgmental and our film team was so loving. But beyond that, we also there are going to be audiences,
Yeah.
and not all of them are going to be loving. So it's this opportunity, I think, to really be completely upfront and honest, which is what we want to be every step of the way. We said to the family, look, we're doing this and it's emotional for you and it's brave of you, but this film might not go anywhere. Like, it could just be that we'll show it to I'll show it to our families. Like, everybody was just every step of the way being open and honest and loving. And I think that really had an impact. But at the same time, this family's fierce determination to have change, to make sure other families could either learn from what they've done or find compassion, that was super important as well.
I was the 5th child born, my mom's youngest. She suffered with anorexia nervosa. It shows up just like addiction. She looked like she was dying all the time. I had goals and aspirations and it didn't matter. There was no regard for what I needed. It was about what she needed and what I needed to do to make that happen. With addiction, you grow up with it, you have a first husband with it, you have your kids that are struggling with it. I promised my kids, we all get out alive. We all survive this.
This did not look like the most comfortable of spaces to film in. It kind of looked like a smaller house than even a house in that area would be like. So, talk a little bit about the challenges of setting up and there's a lot of scenes at the dining table, which was that the idea was to get them more static so that you could maneuver a little bit more or have more room. Or, I mean, because you don't want to direct them per se, but there is only so much room you can work with, so many ways you can put a light up, and make the room not, glow or, at least dim it down. And I have to imagine those challenges were rigorous. Talk a little bit about how you guys overcame that and what that process was like.
I mean, that was all about constructing the right team who was willing to go on the ride of immersing themselves in what this was, and really turning that into our advantage. Again, I think that's where things become really easy when you embrace what's there. And so that space was amazing for us. And I think that it was intimate. It's where the family lives, right? It's where they sleep at night. That being invited into that space brings like a certain weight to it. And I think that makes everybody really like up their game, because it's like, okay, these people are inviting us into their home. We've got to show up and we've got to do a great job. And I think Seamus, our DP, is, I think his way of embracing the space and making it beautiful and also kind of disappearing into the background, I think, is what we did as a film team, was making sure that that we weren't in the family's way. And the dinner thing is interesting. That really wasn't a technical choice. It was the first time we filmed with them, they were having a dinner and we just kind of like picked up the cameras and started filming. And it was just so powerful, because that is like the dinner table is where a family comes together. That's where the big discussions happen. It's where everybody connects about what happened yesterday, what's happening tomorrow. And it's also, I think, symbolic. It represents something. If it's our American family, the American family dinner is such a storied tradition that to be able to really center the film around these few moments at the dinner table was just an opportunity that was too great to pass up.
Was the Philadelphia Zoo the most challenging aspect? Because I have to imagine that you had to get some some grandiose permissions to. I mean, you didn't have a whole lot cutaway there. Just the zebras, I believe, was the only thing I could remember seeing. But maybe I'm wrong. But was that a harder thing to do than set up at the dinner table a little bit, because you had to be careful of people walking around and the like?
I think people around Philadelphia, they know that what a big issue this is throughout our country. So we were so lucky to have partners like, I mean, the Philadelphia Zoo said, absolutely, we want to give you permission. Like, we weren't running into the zoo without permission. The Franklin Institute in Philadelphia said, absolutely, come film. You see like a beautiful film there. Even Nicole Going Through the Heart, with anybody who's from Philly, like shout out to the Franklin Institute Heart. But yeah, we were lucky that people around Philadelphia, I mean, the recovery centers, you know, Women's Space, which is an RHD facility, and Myra's place, like we were lucky that people in and around Philadelphia were just as impassioned to say enough of the stigma, enough of these stories that are going to glamorize addiction, enough seeing people with needles in their arms. You know, they were fierce and thrilled to say, yes, we want to join you and come on in and come film here.
Yeah, as a non-Philadelphia person, I can say that filming in Philadelphia was awesome. It felt like everybody wanted to open up their doors, and it was just really friendly and just an awesome place to film.
So,
and Sean knows a new word. Tell you, what about your new word now, Sean?
Yeah, I picked up John, which has become like a huge part of my vocabulary. Like everything is John now. And I'll hear it occasionally. Like I'll hear it in where was it? I think it was in one of the recent Creed movies. They used John, and I was like, yes, it's there.
That's awesome. I'm curious what, you know, watching this family develop and grow over the time period that you were with them. What do you feel like that left with you as a person, not just as a filmmaker, that ultimately you'll carry with you the rest of your life, that you're really happy that it, or maybe just interested that it did leave that impression for you?
It opened up, I think, another layer of compassion in me, that you never know what's happening behind somebody's door, right? There is nothing at all on the surface about this family that would let you know that they were struggling with the things that they were struggling with.
Right.
I think that's the first thing, and the second thing is that, like, victories can happen even in really difficult circumstances. To be able to see them pull through, and obviously the fight never ends, but to know that, and Nicole's approaching 5 years of sobriety after what she struggled with, and that the family is all doing so well. It's just unbelievable. It's testament to that family, but what it says, I think, to everybody else is this is possible. No matter what your struggle is, whether it's addiction or something else, there's a possibility to win, to make it out.
How about for you, Hallee? What did it leave with you?
I mean, there's so many things. We'd be here for like for years. But it left for me, one of the things is the power of family, whether it's your biological family or your chosen family. Just the people you can count on in a day-to-day situation, the people you can be stripped down honest with, you know, can really help you fight the greatest fight. I remember that, and also the idea, like I remember I had heard Maya Angelou speak years ago when I was in college. And she said, it's kind of hard to believe that in the history of man, there hasn't been anybody who's dealt with a situation, the same exact situation you're in right now, and gotten through it. So for me, I think what stays with me is the power of that. Just seeing that this family, how hard their situation is, and them being brave enough to say, hey, we are going to put ourselves out there so other families can see that they can be in this extreme situation and find a way to get through it. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's not a perfect bow. We can stumble, we can do all this stuff, but we're going to get through it together. That to me is just bringing the brilliant Maya Angelou's like statement to just life right in front of my eyes. It was very powerful.
So as documentarians, the other thing that happens, and we've kind of alluded to it a little bit as well, uh, you go into this whole project with a mindset of, okay, I'm going to film this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to sit down and get these interviews or this talking point, and then somewhere along the way, either during that period of time you're filming or toward the end, when you're editing or you're putting it all together, the film kind of takes a life of its own and kind of shifts and navigates to where it really is the story that is really going to be told here. I'm kind of curious. You've alluded to that. You didn't know where this was going, and then you were very happy that it turned out to be, a happier ending than you had expected. Was there a point when you felt like that's where the direction it was going? Do you feel like that's the shift? What was the shift for you all in making this movie that you really found the footing for the story you were going to tell?
I think some of the things were always there. We always knew we were telling a family story.
Right.
We always knew that we were going to tell a story that doesn't glamorize addiction. We always knew we were going to tell a story that didn't have talking heads or experts. So some of the things were just tried and true. We always knew that the family what their goals were. So I think that always stayed in the front of our mind. We didn't know the exact ending. But at the same time, we knew that we had this great production team. We had this great post team, in Joel and James, Gil Tommy, Catherine, our assistant editor, so many people touched this project. Caroline Labresco coming in with her wisdom. We had so many people coming in that we knew that whether this was what's considered the miracle ending that it is right now, or whether this was different, we were still going to be elegant. We were still going to honor the beautiful pieces of a family who is struggling and the great characters that they have within them. Like, they're great. They have such strong character. They have so many talents. So if nothing else, no matter what had happened, we knew we were going to make sure that viewers saw not just addiction in this film. They saw this family as very brave humans.
You want to add to that, Sean?
No, that was everything. There's nothing to add.
What do you love about making independent film? What is it about independent documentary that you just gravitate towards? What keeps you coming back? What makes you want to keep doing it?
For me, it's being able to tell a story that doesn't necessarily have a commercial hook that's based on something maybe sensational or something we've seen before, right? Like, this is a story that's steeped in authenticity, that is true to this family and what they were going through. And I think that when you get the opportunity to make films like Our American Family, it just inspires you to want to make more films like that. And anytime you can operate outside of that system that's sort of dictating, no, you need to do things this way and have this thing, that's a box I personally prefer not to be in.
Yeah, and I think for me, the goal and the drive to make independent films when it's hard to make an independent film is really just the next generation. How do we want the world to be better for kids? What conversations do we need to start now so that it can change for families? So it's just like, I guess, a fierce drive to want the world to be better for Sean's kids, for my kids, for this family's children, for if you have kids, I don't know, Joe, but if you have kids, and if not, just for for the next gen, for everybody that they're going to grow up with.
The greatest people, the strongest people rise out of nothing.